I know things like witch burnings and slavery were banned and allowed by papal decree and authority. What is materially stopping a pope in the future from reestablishing these practices? Would a Catholic have to go along with these beliefs if a pope declared them to be okay and necessary to do again?
Well, firstly, it's always important to bear in mind, as with slavery and witchcraft, or as today, the death penalty and the environment, which are areas not strictly speaking part of the deposit of faith. The popes are very much influenced by what's already going on. No pope brought in slavery. No pope brought in witchcraft. No pope brought in environmental concerns. No pope brought in the death penalty. These things have been and are pre-existing realities about which the popes make decisions. Very important to understand that. Slavery has been with us since the beginning of time. It's with us today, though we try to pretend it's not and we ignore it. And I don't just mean the sweatshops in downtown LA that are turning out tons of cheap material for designer companies. I don't mean that at all.
I thought they go to Malaysia for the sweatshops.
Well, you have sweatshops here, don't you kid yourself.
I didn't know that.
Every now and then they'll have raids on them. I mean, but there's also traditional black slavery in North Africa.
Really?
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. Practiced among the Tuaregs and the Arabs of the North African desert. The people they call the Haratin.
How did Obama never talk about that?
Because he wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. What's he going to do, send in the Marines? And
that's totally one of the hot button things the United States represents, and they don't even talk about that?
Well, no, because we'd be shown up for the frauds we are. What are we going to do? Send in the Marines to attack the Tuaregs?
Gosh. Wow.
Do you think we're going to do that? I don't think so. And of course, no politician wants to come out and say, there's an existing evil in the world, but because it's the nature of a fallen planet, there's nothing I can do about it. Think he's going to say something about that?
Well, I mean, sometimes they speak out on things that they don't always can change. Like they spoke out against Russia, Putin's social conservatism with the homosexual thing. Well, so why can't they at least give lip service to the North African thing?
Possibly because Putin's gay thing was more important to him. Also, don't forget that these slaves are held by Muslims.
Oh. Okay.
Now, the Anti-Slavery Alliance is still very much with us, though. The oldest abolitionist organization in the world. You can look them up, and I'm all for the work they do. So, help them out. And of course, there are lots of other slaves. I mean, children and women and teen prostitutes are very often traded. Some of the porn actors and actresses are traded. I mean, there's immigrants. You know, these people the coyotes bring over are slaves. At least as long as the coyotes have them.
What are you talking about?
Well, you know what coyotes are.
No.
There are these agents south of the border who will offer to bring people into the United States. Well, these guys are very often not pleasant people. They'll bring over tons of would-be migrant workers, and they may do terrible things with them because you put yourself entirely into these people's control. So if they're women, they can be sold into prostitution. If they're men, they can be stuck working on a ranch somewhere. I mean, they're not all like that, but a lot of them are. I mean, and it's a miserable thing. And for that matter, you look at areas that the cartels run in Mexico, or that some of our gangs run in our major cities. The people who live under their rule are a little more than slaves.
Gosh, I'm angry. You just said like 5 different things that I've never even heard about before.
And I'm sure our masters would prefer you didn't.
I'm sure there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, look, it's a nasty old world. You know, you probably haven't heard about the mass murders of Christians 5 or 6 years ago in India.
India, no.
In Orissa State, yeah, they killed a lot of us. Rapes of nuns, all that kind of good stuff. But our government, we're busy pursuing, especially under Mr. Obama, we're busy pursuing the gay agenda. They didn't have time for this stuff. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I never correct my masters.
You know better.
No, they do.
They know better.
And I bow to their perspicacity. I just hope they're so wise in the next world.
Okay, so...
Oh, but anyway, that's a wild digression.
Yeah, yeah.
Similarly, with witchcraft, it's always existed. And by witchcraft, what are we talking about? I'm not talking about Wicca and the wheel of the seasons. And that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about are some people that have existed in every single society, or are believed to have existed in every society, who are people who are willing basically to give themselves over to whatever that society considers the power of spiritual evil in return for power. And to this day, in pagan countries, in China and Africa and so on, witches are routinely put to death. Now, there was a huge upswing of this kind of activity in Europe in the 1400s. And Pope, I think it's Innocent VIII, but I could be wrong. He decided, maybe it was Innocent XII. Anyway, Innocent VIII, it's like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter, whoever it was. He licensed witchfinders. And they had a very definite manual they had to go by, called the Maleus Maleficarum, which, let me just say that if you exhibit the marks in there, I'd probably burn you.
Can you give us an example?
The ability, the knowledge of foreign tongues, the insensate portions of the body, the extra teats. If you have all these things, you needed all of them. Something weird's going on. Yeah, exactly. Read the book. It's if you got all that marks, buddy.
We actually do have that book in our household. I've been meaning to read it.
Well, you sit down and you read it. But the thing is, that time passed. And mind you, this was something that the Pope, that was demanded of the Pope that he act upon. Now, similarly, the relatively recent teaching on the death penalty, it's important to bear in mind that this was the work of clerics, especially the last two popes, Benedict and John Paul, who had lived through a mass misuse of the death penalty under the Nazis and the communists.
Right.
So their feeling toward it, and of Europeans in general, is a little bit different than that of Americans who have never gone through anything like that. Now, because the Papal States practiced the capital punishment, you really can't put it in the same boat as abortion.
Okay.
But, I mean, people try to, but it makes no sense. The Catholic is obliged to believe whatever the Church has taught, as long as, whatever the Church has taught from the beginning. That certainly is something the Church never taught before, but it's always been against abortion. The contraception, too, going all the way back to Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
But, that is where that comes from. And similarly, the whole environmental thing that Pope Francis has made such a crusade, well, that's a big deal amongst the thinking classes of today, just as witchcraft was. And they demanded an answer, and they got it.
Okay.
So the question is, then, if there was ever a thing of slavery or witchcraft, well, it depends on whether or not there's an upswing in it again. I have no doubt that if slavery becomes the fact of life en masse that it was 300 years ago, the popes will have to say something about it. Then if there's an uptick in witchcraft, the popes will have to say something about it.
Yeah.
But I can't predict that, because that would be, my prediction would be witchcraft, and I could be punished.